Graham Vincent, violin maker and musician. What makes a good violin? How do we choose a good violin? I'm going to be demonstrating, as much as I am demonstrating, on one I made. This is the violin that I tend to use for live performance and so on. I think it was the 8th one that I made, and I keep coming back to it. Some of these things are completely subjective, some are quite objective. So here we go. How does it look and how does it feel? If you don't like the look of a violin, if you don't like the way it feels in your hands, then you won't play it. And when you do, on the occasions you do play it, you're going to sort of resent it, and you're going to be wishing you had another violin, or you're going to be still looking for another violin. So it's not a good violin for you. And this is where value against whether a violin is good for you comes into it. Just because a violin is worth a lot of money, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right violin for you. So don't confuse if a violin is good with how valuable it is. Two different things here. It should articulate clearly and quickly. So you should get a note instantly you draw the bow. Whether that's with some force or with a smoother start. And that means that everything you play will be produced by the violin, and that's a bit of a shock to start off with if you're coming from a violin that doesn't respond quickly, because you will find it's as though a filter has been taken off your sound and suddenly you can hear everything, and it's a bit of a surprise. It feels like there's nowhere to hide. So don't be shocked by that. It's a good thing, and you will get used to it quite quickly, but it's very important for your progression that you have a violin that speaks quickly, and preferably with very, very few squeaks. Obviously the squeaking is sometimes down to the player, but some violins have a tendency to squeak more than others, so bear that in mind as well. It should be ringy. As well as speaking quickly, the strings should ring. If you just pluck them, you should just hear that ring. And that's important, because when you're playing one string, it means the other strings will be vibrating as well. If the other strings are vibrating as well, they'll be producing this sort of this harmonic sort of harmony going on in the background, and that means, apart from anything else, you can judge your pitch well. You will stay in tune more. You can play more in tune on a ringy violin more easily than on one that doesn't, and it'll sound better as well. As well as the violin playing quickly to your touch, it should do two other things which are really important. One is everything should be even. You don't want one string to stand out. You don't want one string to be quiet. You want an evenness across the strings, and you want an evenness in tone and volume as you go up the neck as well. That's very important. You want dynamic range. You want to be able to play really quietly and more loudly. All of those things are important. Tone. Do you like the sound of it? Does it sound like that violin you've got in your head? If it doesn't, if you don't like the sound of it, it's the same as if you don't like how it looks, how it feels, then you're onto a loser. So that's important. The strings you can change, the bridge you can change. You can have a luthier fiddle with a sound post to sort that out. But ideally you want everything to be good when you're picking it, so you can make a good judgment. You shouldn't be committing yourself to something that you think might be okay once you've had it sorted out. Bows. Play the violin with several bows, because it always surprises me how much different bows work with different instruments, and I don't know why sometimes, but that's a significant factor. The other thing is, consider how you're going to be using the violin. If you're going to be playing it quietly to yourself at home, make a judgment based on that. If you're going to be playing it in a quartet, try it in a quartet if you possibly can. Same with an orchestra. If you're going to be playing it live on stage, amplified, try it like that. And most violin makers will be reasonably comfortable with you taking a violin away on trial. Hopefully they'll trust you enough to do that. If you're going to be recording, most definitely do a recording or two and listen to those, because it's quite surprising how a violin may actually sound to you, may not be how it sounds further away, and that seems to be especially the case when you're recording. It's I don't know why, but that for me is a big one, and quite an important one. Technically, your violin should work. If it's a good violin, you expect the pegs to be working, you expect the strings to slide evenly through the nut, you expect them to slide over the bridge, you expect the bridge to be well fitted, you expect all the fine tuners to be working, depending what fine tuners you've got on it. Shouldn't be any cracks or anything in it. If there are historical repairs, they must all be absolutely sound. You should be confident of that. So I think, I mean, there are other things as well, but that is a good starting point for some of the things I look for when I'm looking at a violin to decide whether it's a good violin or not. I suppose in a nutshell, does it look like a violin I want? Does it feel nice in my hands? Does it sound like the sort of violin sound I've got in my head? And does it look like everything's working on it? Those are the key things, really. So there we go. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching indeed. Talk to you soon. Cheers. Bye.